And so what does this do? This paints a picture of love. This paints this picture of love that Jesus has for your family. This love that Jesus has for your relationships. It's his time was coming to Jesus' time was actually coming to a close. And what does he do? In verse 3, Jesus receives this incredibly intense revelation from God. And it says in chapter 13, verses 3 through 5. It says, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. So he got up from the meal, lean in right here, guys, and he began to wash his disciples' feet. Jesus knew that all power, think about this, Jesus knew that all power was given to him. And what does he do? He gets up and he washes his disciples' feet. See, once you realize that Jesus has all the power, he had all the authority, the very next thing that he does is he washes the disciples' feet. This is an amazing, guys, picture of Jesus using the power that he had to serve. Jesus using the power that he had to serve, because the reality of it is that so many times when me and you have power, what do? We see it all the time. People want to abuse their power. People want to abuse their authority, but not Jesus. Jesus sets this template. What does he do? He gets up and washes the very feet of the men that he's leading. That's an amazing picture of using your power to serve. So this is what Paul is doing. He's writing in this text, and he's saying, just as Jesus submitted to everyone under his authority, so, listen guys, should you submit to every member in your household. Submit to one another, not out of reverence for each other, not out of respect for each other, but out of reverence for who? For Jesus. Why? For what Jesus did for us. That's what the submission needs to come through. So Paul is saying when it comes to families living out for reverence for Christ, here's what it should look like. When it comes to families living out the gospel, this is exactly what it should look like. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21. Submit yourselves to one another out of reverence for Christ. That's what submission should look like. And I think this is what Scripture should look like in our house, is saying that, like, look, I'm here for you. I'm here to use whatever I have for you. And I think that the Scripture is saying this, is that no one in the family is more important than anybody else. So many times we think like, oh, I'm the most important one in the family, when nobody in the family is important than anybody else. And when we all submit to each other and we do it equally, listen, that's what we need to do. We need to submit to each other equally. No one in this family is more important than somebody else. We're going to submit to one another. And I know, family, that we're not there. But I have this idea, family, that if we just put the pedal to the metal, that'll get us to our destination. That if we just put the pedal to the metal, it'll get us to our destination. And it has to start with questions like this. What can I do to help? What can I do to help you? What can I do to use for your benefit that I have? What can I use my time for to help you? How can I use who I am to actually help you? What can I use what I have to give you for your benefit? What can I do to help you with? Somebody look at your neighbor in your family and say, what can I do to help you? See, because here's the reality. If everyone in the family at least one time, once a day, ask this question to everyone, how different would the dynamic be? How different would the dynamic in our families be? How different would conversations be? Think about it. This is an offering of all I am. Apple, can you hear me? An offering of all that I am for all that you need. And it's saying that I'm loaning me to you. And what if we all said this? I'm talking to kids, I'm talking to wives, I'm talking to husbands, I'm talking to grandkids, I'm talking to everybody. If we all said this, we would dynamically blow each other out of the water. What can I do to help you? What can I do to help you? How can I use my time to benefit you? Is there anything that I can do to help you? And so all this takes practice. And so here's the thing. Are you guys ready for homework? Here's your practical homework. Are you ready? And this is what Paul is saying when he said to submit. This is exactly what Paul was saying when he said to submit. So why don't we all ask? Why don't we ask each other these questions? Well, because we're afraid, right? We're scared to be afraid. We don't ask because of fear. We don't ask because there's something that we're afraid of. We don't ask because we're scared that somebody's going to take advantage of our time. Am I right or wrong? Like there's times where we're like, I don't want to ask them if they need my help because then they're going to take advantage of me. And maybe it's just men more than it is women. I don't know what it is. And then, it's when we do ask and we think that people are going to take advantage of us. And we find out that they really don't want us to do nothing for them. But it's just the fact of the matter of just asking, like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? This is why our text is so important, guys. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21, where he says, submit yourselves to one another out of reverence for Christ. Submit. Think about that word, to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. If we can really catch the context of this text, I believe that our houses would be transformed. How many of us want that Leave It to Beaver family? Maybe you guys older ones don't know, but you older ones know that we want that family that's like, man, we want that family that people say like, man, look at that family. I want a family like that. That's the kind of family I want. But it all starts with submission. Submitting to one another. Why? Because they're worthy? No, because it's out of reverence for Jesus. It's out of reverence for Christ. Because God was able to do this. God was able to look down at this big old mess that we're in. And Jesus was able to say, Father, not my will, but your will be done. It's not my will, Lord, but your will be done, Father. In other words, Jesus said this. He said, Father, what can I do to help? What can I do to help you? And this is what the Father said. He says, look, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. You turn some music on. He says, you don't want to know. It's going to cost you your life. And Jesus says, you know what? I know it's going to cost me my life, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And so here's Paul. What Paul's saying, out of reverence for Jesus, make everything that you have available to someone else. Make everything that you have available to someone else. And yes, you know what? Somebody may take advantage of you. They might take advantage of the situation. And you may not get done everything that you wanted to get done. But I want to tell you this. Welcome to being a follower of Jesus Christ. Because out of reverence and gratitude for the fact is that what Jesus did for you and what Jesus did for me. It's saying, what can I do to help you? Did you know that the good news is 99.99% of the time, it's not going to cost you your life. It's just going to cost you a little bit of time. It's just going to cost you a little bit of energy. It's just going to cost you just a little bit of money. It's just going to cost you just a little bit of sweat. It's going to cost you at times just a little bit of frustration. Why? Because you hate doing the dishes. Come on, somebody, I'm speaking of myself. But what can I do to help you? Well, you can do the dishes. I shouldn't have asked. You know what makes for a great family? It's saying, I'm willing to have whatever I have. I'm going to offer it to you, all that I am, for all of us. As a matter of fact, I did that last night. I'm like, babe, what can I do for me? Do for you? She's like, you can do the dishes. Come on, somebody. But it's saying to our family, what can I do to help you? What can I do? How can I take my time and serve you? How can I help you? That's the model that Paul's saying, because there's not very many good illustrations of a good family. But as Christians, I know that this all sounds like a good idea. Why? Because it just does. But we all fall short for it. This is something that we shoot for, right? This is something that you and I have to shoot for. But as Christians, listen, this has to be your homework. This has to be your homework. But not only your homework, but this is actually mandatory. Did you know that? That this is mandatory. Romans 5, 6, and 8 says, while we were utterly helpless. You know what that means? It means while you still needed help, Christ came at the right time. Not when he had time. Christ didn't come when he had time. He didn't say, well, I don't know, Father, I'm pretty busy right now. Let me see if I can work that all into my schedule. And, I'll let you know, Father. And then saying, whoops, it's too late. They all died in their sin. No, Jesus didn't say that he was too busy. It says that at just the right time. You want to know why this is so important? While we needed help, at the right time, when you and I needed help, not when it was convenient, but